He is the senator from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. Welcome back, Senator Ed Markey. Good to see you.
Thank you. Great to be with you again, John.
So let's start with the legislative achievement this week. The stimulus bill, it will cut child poverty almost in half. It's tilted toward working people in a way previous relief was not, and every Democrat got on board. It was pretty remarkable that while there was a defeat on the minimum wage, the right flank of the party took issue with some parts of unemployment benefits, some parts of the direct payments, but the scale of the bill wasn't in jeopardy. That seems to me to be a pretty big shift. What did you learn in terms of some of the big fights to come from this victory?
Well, first, that we shouldn't expect a lot of cooperation from Republicans on the big issues. That was pretty clear. They wanted to scale this package down to about 1/3 of what it ultimately wound up being, which clearly did not match the magnitude of the problem and the help that people need all across the country. What we saw on our side was disagreements, but not disagreements that went to the core issue of whether or not we had to provide unemployment insurance help, that we needed to send a check to everyone, that we needed more funding for cities and towns, that we had to reduce child poverty in the United States, especially in this coronavirus pandemic environment. So from my perspective, what we saw was Democrats were willing to work together. There wasn't a unanimity of opinion in terms of every single issue, but ultimately it got worked out. And the $1.9 trillion, while not in the exact form actually that any single member would have wanted it to be, did pass. And it's going to mean a lot for a lot of families, but it's also going to speed us on the route to getting a shot in the arm of every American, and to having an economic recovery that puts people back to work as quickly as possible.
So the last time you were on the show, we talked about abolishing the filibuster. You were a little skeptical at the time. You wanted to give Republicans a chance to come to the table. I was skeptical of that. I did want to have you here to say, I told you so. No, I'm kidding. But you've come out in favor of abolishing the filibuster, and this seems to me to be a really important conversation taking place inside the Democratic Party among senators that is about genuine persuasion. What is that conversation like right now among you and your colleagues about how we abolish or reform the filibuster to get some of these big pieces of legislation done?
No, you are right. It's pretty clear just from this first bill that the Republicans are going to be obstructionists when it comes to doing the big things which we need to do in our country. That's including increasing the minimum wage, dealing with the climate crisis, ensuring that voting rights are extended to everyone in our country, and that those rights are protected, that we have comprehensive immigration reform in our country. All of that clearly is going to be blocked by Republicans who will use the filibuster. So to the extent to which they failed this first test, it's a prediction of coming attractions from their side. So what Democrats are increasingly doing is talking about abolishing the filibuster. I am a big fan of that. It's just got to go. It's really an historical impediment to the implementation of the kinds of fundamental changes that we need in our country. And the sooner we have that vote is the sooner we begin to confront these issues. So, for example, labor unions right now, they're realizing that there is no increase in minimum wage unless the filibuster goes, that there is no overhaul of how unions organize in our country so that we have more union workers unless the filibuster goes. And so I think every part of the Democratic coalition is coming together to say very clearly that the time has come, that this remnant of the Jim Crow era, this remnant of something that goes all the way back to John C. Calhoun, using it as a way to block any reform of the of the laws which permitted slavery in our country has to go. And to anyone who's listening right now, there's a great book out. It's called Kill Switch. And Kill Switch is a book which just details the history of the filibuster. And right now, and actually historically for the most part, the filibuster hasn't been used to block bad things from happening. It's been used to stop good things from happening in our country. And that's civil rights laws in the 50s and the 60s, all the way up until today, where voting rights, climate crisis, minimum wage, we can go on, are going to be blocked unless we change the rules of the Senate.
So it seems like we need to put pressure on the outside on some of the Democratic senators who have not yet come around to, if not abolishing the filibuster, putting in place a number of reforms that would change the way it works. It wouldn't become this de facto 60-vote threshold. But I do think we need to do some genuine persuasion inside of the Senate. So here's my pitch to you. I think you should just be walking by cinema or mansion like you're on the phone, like you're not even talking to them, like you're on the phone, and you just say things like, oh man, we could do so much more bipartisan deal making if we didn't have this 60-vote threshold, or geez, I sure wish the legislative branch could reassert its primacy in the constitutional order, but we can't do that until we change the filibuster. What do you think about that?
Well, in a way, that is the cacophony that he is exposed to on the Democratic side every single day, and not just the senators, but I think just Democrats in general. It's something I think that's going to happen over the next several weeks, the next several months, when it becomes clear that, for example, on union protections, that the Republicans won't allow it to come up. And Senator Manchin's a very strong pro-union senator. He and Senator Toomey, a Republican, have a bill to ensure that there are background checks on anyone purchasing a gun in the United States. And it's highly unlikely that in a Mitch McConnell-controlled Republican minority that 40 votes will show up. 41 votes to ensure that we can begin to debate that and pass it. So in each instance, we're going to be in a situation where it becomes clearer and clearer and clearer that the system is broken. It's just not working. It can't work as long as we have the filibuster in place. So that's my view as to how this is going to unfold. It'll be a story that will actually make it very, very clear that on issue after issue, the Republicans will not come to the table to have meaningful change, and that ultimately that will make it much more likely that we can get all Democrats on board in order to effectuate this historically needed change.
So let's talk about that, because, we have this 50-50 Senate. We have a slim majority in the House. Right now, across the country, we have Republicans and state legislatures trying to restrict the right to vote on a massive scale. And Republicans have said just with redistricting, just with gerrymandering alone, they may be able to close the gap in the House. And that's not even accounting for the fact that in a midterm like this, the incumbent president traditionally loses seats. So we have a big challenge coming for us in 607 days. Do you believe that right now, Democrats in the Senate are showing enough urgency around issues like H.R. 1, especially when you know what we have to do is not just get it on the floor, but we have to get these things on the floor, watch them fail, then persuade some colleagues to come on board with reforming the filibuster. We got a lot of work to do, not just to protect the vote, but then also to pass bills to earn the votes. So do you feel like we're doing this fast, that we're moving fast enough?
Well, we just finished this historically huge relief package for the country without any real cooperation from the Republicans. So we just finished it. Now we move on. But having been illuminated by the experience we just had with the Republicans. So as we just said, going back to John C. Calhoun, they were using essentially a form of the filibuster to just stop minorities in our country, African Americans, from voting, from participating in our system. They wanted to keep them in a slave-like condition, actually to keep them as slaves. And that just extended all the way through the post Civil War period where, yeah, theoretically on the books, it looked like we had passed some laws that would make it possible for now these freed slaves to fully participate in our democracy. But we know that a consensus developed in the country, Democrat and Republican, that the Old South would just be allowed to continue to impose their very rigid restrictions on the ability of the Black population to fully participate. Martin Luther King came along, it was a big battle, filibusters from Strom Thurmond to stop any progress that would be made in terms of voting rights. And ultimately, we had big laws in 1964 and 65 to make that possible, but we still have a long way to go. And as you're saying, all across the country right now, at the state legislative level, new laws are being proposed to restrict the right to vote, to make it more difficult to vote, to make it more difficult for anyone to be able to participate. And what's their plan? What's the Republican business plan? What are they trying to do? It's to stop Blacks and Latinos from easily registering and voting in our country. That's their business plan. They don't want them to vote because they know that when we get a full participation, that state goes blue. That's what we just saw in Georgia. The state goes blue. It's not a miracle. It's just a result of voting activism that took over. So from my perspective, that's the great lesson. Every Democrat knows right now in the Senate that we're in the majority because we just won 2 seats in Georgia. No one had that on the scoreboard 2 years ago. And why did we win? Because Stacey Abrams and Warnock and John Ossoff put together a tremendous plan to increase voter turnout. What are the Republicans doing in response to that victory? They are now putting together across the country, state by state, plans to restrict the ability for people to vote. So it's not lost on all of us who are now chairman. Each one of us has a gavel. We're called Mr. Chairman because it's 50-50 with Kamala Harris breaking the tie. And by the way, every time she votes, we win. So we're not unmindful of that. And we want to hold on to the majority. So HR 1 is at the top of our minds, at the top of our agenda, because we can see across the country what's happening right now. And if it's allowed to happen, we're just going to revert back to decades ago levels of turnout in our country because it will just be so difficult for people to be able to register and to vote.
And I don't want to. I want to move on to daylight saving time because that's a topic near and dear to both of our hearts. But I guess my fear, my concern is, you passed a climate bill through the House and it died in the Senate. My only fear is that we repeat some of what happened in those years where we had the House was in a position to pass things like HR 1, and then the Senate was just so sclerotic, so broken that a lot of House members took risky votes, and then things didn't move in the Senate. But you feel like we can get these things moving through the Senate?
Well, what we always said in the House, and again, that's Henry Waxman and I passing our comprehensive climate bill in 2009, which did pass to reduce greenhouse gases by 80% by the year 2050. That was back in 2009, and we won. And it went over to the Senate. And again, you need 60 votes over in the Senate to do something that's that comprehensive. And they stalled out at like maybe 55, 56 votes. So what we always used to say is the Senate is the place where good bills go to die. And that's a reality that we're going to have to deal with right now. How do we respond? So we're going to use the reconciliation process again in the next several months. And we can do a lot of great climate related things inside of that reconciliation bill. And again, it only requires 51 votes. That's the key. So we don't have to have climate deniers giving us permission to move forward who are inside of the Republican caucus. But there are going to be many things that we may not be able to get done. And then along with, again, minimum wage, gun safety laws, immigration, comprehensive legislation, it's all going to come back to the filibuster. Yeah. If we're going to take up an opportunity to be able to get this done. in my congressional seat, my old congressional seat, I had a dog track to Wonderland, and I had the horses running at Suffolk Downs. And here's what I know after all those years of growing up within 3 miles of those two tracks, it's that you don't hit the trifecta that often. The House, the Senate, the presidency. Doesn't happen at the track, doesn't happen in politics. So we have 2 years here to get it done. Because if we don't, there's no guarantee that we will be able to come this way again. So on each and every one of these issues, including climate, we have to do whatever it takes in order to put the policies in place that solves this, again, existential threat to the planet.
So daylight savings time, also on the agenda. You just co-sponsored a bill that's out to make daylight savings year-round. You have 10 co-sponsors in the Senate right now. When we talked about this last year, you said this was funny. You said, I'm sure I'm going to wind up in some conversation with some farmer Republican from Kansas or Nebraska. What's interesting is you have both Oklahoma senators on board the Rubio bill. That's hard for me to say. I support the Rubio bill. All right, got it out. How do we get to 50, Senator? How do we get 50 votes to end this time shifting?
Well, from my perspective, again, you just have to continue to go member to member to member to member. So again, I had a hard time back in 1986. I was the chairman over time in 1986, and I was able to move it from the end of April to the beginning of April, but negotiating with the farm state members of the House who said that the cows operate on God's time. And I kept telling them they don't have wristwatches, they don't have clocks, they don't know what time it is, but that's how they view kind of this farm culture. We work on God's time. So I was able to get the 3 weeks. Then I had to wait until all of the members who I negotiated with then were gone. And then in 2005, I went over to another group of Republicans, and then I moved it from the beginning of April all the way down to the beginning of March, which is where it is now. And I picked up those weeks, and now I think enough time has elapsed where we can actually begin to say to people, don't you enjoy daylight savings time? Don't you enjoy the sunshine at night? Doesn't it make the corners of your mouth turn upwards? Doesn't it make it easier for you to go out and to take a walk or to go shopping or play with your kids? Isn't it time now that we make that last step? So that's the case I'm going to be making to Democrats and Republicans. See how much you liked it? We got you 7 weeks. And by the way, I added a week at Halloween. So it's no longer the last week of October. It's the first week of November. So I've added like 2 months so far. And we've got these final 4 months to go now. But I think people, when they try it, they like it. And that's why I think there's increasing support on daylight savings time. And I'm very hopeful that ultimately we're going to be successful.
The bill that you're on, it just makes it permanent. And basically any state that's on daylight saving time right now, they move to permanent daylight saving time. But the states that are on standard, they stay on standard. Here's my pitch to get this done. If you have objections from some of these farmers, all right,
okay.
Which is all you need is to give states a period of time to choose permanent daylight saving or standard. Because it is true that there's a difference between you're an Eastern time zone state, Senator, right? Massachusetts, Maine, they're all the way on the east edge of the time zone. So sun rises earlier and sets earlier. But in a place like Michigan or a place like Kansas or some of these states that are on the western edge of the time zone, they basically are in a version of permanent daylight saving time because the sun sets much later there because of where they are geographically. I'm just trying to get this done. All right. I'm trying to find a pragmatic solution. So all you do is really just give them the option. And then in practicality, they just end up, it just redraws the time zone line slightly, but you still get what you want for Massachusetts. We get what we want for Florida. We get what we want from the other states. Also, I want to work on Dianne Feinstein and Padilla. I think we can get them. I don't know where we got to get these California senators. We're a sunshine state in California.
Yeah. I just think, and I like your concept. We have to be a little bit flexible here towards achieving the ultimate goal. And I like where you're going. I like the thinking you're putting into this issue.
Oh, thank you.
Like historically important thinking that you're adding to this discussion. And believe me, I love the company because, I was a lonely sentinel back in 1986 saying we have to change it. And now I think people increasingly love daylight savings time, but we need a kind of a set of practical solutions, compromises that we make if we're ultimately going to pass this comprehensive bill. So I like where you're going, and I'm going to now take what you're saying and kind of bring it back with my staff. We can sit down and we can look at all the time zones to see how perhaps we can get the votes. But I agree with you. Focusing on California is very important. Okay, the Golden State. So let's get them on board.
Also, I know you haven't gotten anybody from Wisconsin. You haven't gotten Illinois. They're on the eastern edge of their time zones. They'd win. They'd win with permanent daylight saving. We got to go to these eastern edge places where they got these 4 o'clock sunsets in the winter. And now my final pitch to you. All right. Now I know the branding is lock the clock. I've seen that out there, but I think we can do better. All right. So I want to give you a couple options. All right. Here's one. I think that you could lead a group of people called the Dusk Busters.
The Dusk Busters. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
And then this one was, I think, just for you. All right. If you want to get your brand on this thing. All right. Make sure you get the credit you deserve.
Okay. Yeah.
And this is daylight saving time. It's remarkable.
Remarkable. That really does. That's appealing to me. Remarkable. Yeah. I like it. And for your show, as your branding, so you're on this messaging on an ongoing basis. I think if we look at Bill Withers and we just get inspired by him, this great guy who just passed away in the past year, your show should be Ain't No Sunshine till daylight savings time is gone.
Oh, that's good.
No sunshine. Yeah, we can use Bill Withers in the background. Maybe we can make it. But darkness stops today, making daylight savings time stands for that, or even the chickens hate daylight savings time. Or Convo with Mr. Sunshine. You can rebrand yourself as Mr. Sunshine, and your show.
Oh, that's good.
Convo with
now
Mr.
I'm Mr. Sunshine.
Yeah,
I like
that's
that.
what you become. Yeah, you become the embodiment of this movement that we're creating.
I also think you could do a TikTok dance. All right, you could think about that.
How does that look?
It's just you dancing, and with words about. It's a time to party. We'd call it time to party. Because daylight saving time gives people time to party. All right. We got a lot of great ideas for you. All right. And here's the thing, Senator Markey. I think you owe me. All right. And here's why. I gave you a softball interview and I really creamed that Kennedy kid.
All right. And the way I'm going to pay you back is I'm going to do a TikTok in the next 2 days.
All right.
With a little headline, Time to Party. So and try to put that out there. So we're going to test your idea.
All right.
To see what its market acceptability is. So I'll be doing that, and I got to figure out what moves I'm going to be using in order to have it sync up with daylight savings time beginning again on Saturday night.
I didn't really cream him. I didn't really cream. Anyway, Senator Ed Markey, thank you so much. It was great to talk to you, and I'm gonna keep reaching out because I want to see if we can really push this. I can't have any more 4 o'clock sunsets. All right. This has been too depressing of a year as it is. We gotta move past this shit. It's done.
I am 100% with you. I think we can see the light at the end of daylight savings time now. I think it's time for us to just admit that the corners of your mouth turn upwards when it's sunny out, and it makes everyone feel better when they're driving home at night and it's not pitch black at 4 p.m. Okay, and they got a little bit of daylight left that they can enjoy for themselves or with their families. So I'm with you. I'm on board, and I will be talking to you again about this issue because it's at the top of my agenda as well.
It's time. Senator Ed Markey, thank you so much. It's good to see you.
Thank you. Good to be with you.
filibuster.